Shock Monkey Radio is entertainment for adults, by adults, and the views and opinions expressed here do not reflect upon the sponsors or FXBG Public Radio. For additional information, please refer to the United States Bill of Rights. Stand warned. Yeah, can I get a little bit more volume in the headphones? Check, check. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. You know what? We should compliment each other more. When I say you look very nice today, it doesn't mean I'm Facebook stalking you hardcore and I can't wait to peel your skin in my basement. But we should compliment each other. I don't know about you, but I'm constantly wondering why anyone likes me or hangs around me. After all, I'm quite abrasive at times and have a mind sharper than my tongue, especially when it comes to saying hurtful things. So perhaps you should compliment me so I develop those characteristics as opposed to the ones that I have cultivated so far on my own. Do you see my point? So when someone says to you something nice, that you look nice, just take it, put it in your pocket and say something awesome like, to be honest, I think we all look great today. And we didn't even have to coordinate. And you could do that. You could do the hands on the hips things if you want and do a little hair toss. You know, women get away with that better than men do. But hey, do something awesome like that. Welcome to Shock Monkey Radio. I am your host, the Madman. I want to remind you that I have a Patreon. Go to patreon.com/shockmonkeyradio. All one word. There you can become a patron or even advertise on the show. Shock Monkey Radio is the cash tag for, what's that called? Cash App. Cash App, you want to send me money through Cash App, hashtag Shock Monkey Radio. And you can follow me on social media at DeNolitSaw on Twitter, Shock Monkey Radio Redux on Facebook, and at SLRobbins13 on Instagram. I see some of you follow my Instagram. Did you like my ludicrous? Did you like my ludicrous post? What was it? Move wench, step from one's path. And I did like hashtag ludicrous, hashtag chivalry. And we'll be talking about chivalry later on. Yeah, I also have books available on Amazon for digital download. Search for the author Scott L. Robbins with 2 T's and 2 B's, or you can follow the links down in the description below. Yeah, we should compliment each other. I think that, you know, the whole idea, like, when I get to a point with people where it's like I'm afraid to give somebody a compliment when it pops in my head. And I'm like, I don't want to give this person a compliment because they might read too much into it, or, you know, next thing you know, I'm going to court, you know, sexual harassment or something like that. And you just don't know these days with some people. You really don't. But I think that, you know, it's good to compliment each other, and we should compliment each other in you know, and any chance we can. And, you know, EK, if I ever met a woman as petite as you, who laughed at my jokes and loved talking to me as much as you do, I'd marry her.
I'm not getting the surgery.
He says he's not getting the surgery. All right. So there's a lot going on there, right? It's a compliment. Granted, it's not necessarily a compliment for EK. I'm complimenting some fictional woman that's as short and small-framed as he is, you know, who actually is a friend, you know, who likes talking to me, likes laughing with me. You know, so it's not necessarily a compliment for EK. In fact, you could even say that it's a backhanded insult calling him small. Okay? And then there's the added element where EK might have this thought in the back of his mind, is the Madman sexually attracted to me? You know? And that can mess with his brain. That might cause him some sleepless hours. So it's not like you can't have fun when it comes to compliments. On the opposite side of that coin, you remember Slambooks? Do you remember Slambooks, EK?
Were those the trash-talking books?
Trash-talking books. For those of you who don't know, I grew up, I was going to school throughout most of the 80s and the first half of the 90s. So this is all like kind of pre-internet. And so what a Slambook was, it was an empty notebook where somebody would write somebody's name on the top of each page or something like that. Or you can write your own name on the top of a page. You know, Slambooks were interactive in that way. And then you pass it around the school, and the different students would write comments on on your page or whatever like that. And usually they were negative comments. Usually they were like mean things, as you know. And you know, a slam book would be passed around this classroom, and everyone's giggling, and the teacher's like, "Quiet down, quiet down." You know. Then some girl reads something that somebody wrote about her in the slam book, and she starts crying. And what's going on here? What is this, a slam book? And they'd have to like have some like assembly, and they're telling people not to do slam books and that bullying is bad and slam books are bullying. And yeah, kind of. But I mean, it's also something like that, you know, wicked teenagers do. You know, the teenagers can be the meanest. It's because their minds are still are coming into the age where they can start being as mean as possible. And so and that's why, you know, high school and middle school is all such a hell of a time for everybody. And so like these slam books, they get passed around the school, you know, every now and then. And I would never participate in them. They would come across my desk, and I wouldn't write anything in them. I certainly wouldn't put my name at the top of any page, but I'd look to see if my name's in there. I'd look to see what other people think about other people, you know, and it's usually quite awful. You know, Madman is fat, you know. You know, what was one? Sir farts a lot, someone wrote. And, you know, it's, I would never participate in them, but I found them interesting nonetheless. And so it was interesting because I remember there was this one girl who got a hold of the slam book, and she wrote in this purple ink, right, to distinguish herself from everyone else. And so she'd write in the slam book. She went on every single page under every single name. It wrote something positive about every single person in that slam book. And I remember she wrote in that distinctive ink, and everyone knew that she had that pink pen. Or was it purple? I think it was purple. Purple pen. And so everyone knew it was her who wrote all these positive things. And under my name, she wrote Sir Laughs a Lot. And then underneath that, somebody wrote in black ink, Sir Farts a Lot. And, you know, that's the nature of slam books. But I remember that was like one of the very first times a girl went from, she's kind of cute, to, wow, she's a real winner. Like immediately, just like that, you know? And so, and it was because she tried to take this awful thing, which is a slam book, and turn it into something positive, you know, and knowing that she was fighting an uphill battle after seeing the slam book. And because she was trying to do the good thing, trying to do the right thing, that made her all the more attractive to me. And I think that's, you know, those kinds of things are important. You know, she did more about, I thought I saw the slam book come across my desk. I think this is wrong. I'm not going to participate in this. But she took it a step further and says, I'm going to try to turn this thing around. And that's awesome. That's very cool. We should compliment each other. You know, Facebook is all one big slam book. You know what I mean? It's everyone trying to own everybody, you know? So be careful out there. Slam book, Facebook, you know, it's human nature to be to be needlessly cruel. Ugh. Anyway, kind of warm in here. End of the summer, ladies and gentlemen. So I want to talk a little bit about chivalry again. And so when I'm out and about and I'm working, interacting with people, you know, or like even shopping and stuff like that. If somebody, you know, it's like I bought like a couple lighters the other day because my lighter died. And so I went and bought a couple lighters, you know, active one and a spare. And so I went in, just paid for the 2 lighters. I said, "Thank you, sir," and walked away. He was like, "Sir?" I was like, "Yeah, it's something that, you know, that I started doing when I was in the Navy. I would say, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am," and stuff like that, you know, depending, especially like officers and stuff like that, you know, they kind of expected that language, but I also said it to people who are subordinate to me. You know, it's so I found it to be very useful to use sir and ma'am when speaking to people, and they'll start doing it themselves. I found out this recently as, I integrated myself into this small group of people, and I started using sir and ma'am, and they started using sir and ma'am. And it makes people a little bit more respectful. It makes people a little bit more understanding that we are gentlemen and ladies, in the world. And I think a lot of people will say that, chivalry is dead. And so, I mean, well, you do have a lot of these pink-haired, shaved-head weirdos with stuff in their nose. You try to hold a door open for them at Wawa, and they start yelling at you about a patriarchy or some nonsense. What do you expect to happen to chivalry? And so, but I mean, I think chivalry is more than just holding a door open for a woman. Chivalry is more than a patriarchy in many ways. And so, I want to talk about the code of chivalry. And it's like, this is just a cursory glance on Wikipedia, the 10 Commandments of Chivalry. Thou shalt believe in the church's teachings. Okay, controversial one. 2, thou shalt defend the church. Okay, I'm down with that as a Christian. Thou shalt respect all weaknesses, and shalt constitute thyself as the defender of them. That's a good one. Thou shalt respect all weaknesses, and shalt constitute thyself the defender of them. That's a good one. All right? Thou shalt love the country in which thou wast born. Thou shalt not recoil before thine enemy. Thou shalt make war against the infidel without cessation and without mercy. Kind of controversial. Thou shalt perform scrupulously thy feudal duties, if they not be contrary to the laws of God. So you must do as you are told, unless they are contrary to the laws of God. Good one. Thou shalt never lie, and remain faithful to thy pledged word. Another good one. Thou shalt be generous, and give largesse to everyone, as Christ teaches. Thou shalt be everywhere and always the champion of the right and the good against injustice and evil. These are awesome concepts. And I don't think that they've gone away. All right? There's a lot more to it than just treating women and children and the innocent and the weak with respect and with a defensive posture. All right? That's all a good thing. Because when Jesus spoke, I think it was the Sermon on the Mount, where he said, blessed are the Greek, blessed are the cheesemakers. I keep screwing that up. Damn you, Monty Python. It's blessed are the weak, blessed are the meek, and blessed are the peacemakers. And meek, in the original translation, from what I understand, does not mean timid or like cowardly. It means, meek means a sheathed sword, means a capable warrior who is willing to work along peaceful lines. And I think I mentioned this last week about saluting and handshakes and how this is all about, trying to interact. It's like, I would rather not use the sword, but I got one and I know how to use it. And that's the idea behind chivalry and gentlemen, men who protect the weakness in the world. They recognize the weakness in the world and they will protect it. I mean, that's the point of masculinity in many ways. The positive aspect of masculinity is striving for this ideal of being a dangerous warrior for the cause of good. And I think that's what like the code of chivalry is all about. And I think that's why I, to this day, will call people sir and ma'am. Is because I believe that, we should all be dangerous monsters. Dangerous monsters. And these guys who go off to war, I mean, I know I served in the Navy, but it's not like I ever saw any action at all. All right? But these guys who went off to Iraq and Afghanistan, they came back and they saw the monsters that they can become, the damage that they can deal to humanity by themselves as an instrument of warfare. And that's a big part of what PTSD is when these guys come back home, is that they saw the monster that they created of themselves in order to become a warrior for their country. But the idea is that, despite all these awful things that you can do or even have done, you can still be a warrior for the good and the right and keep that sword sheathed, but sharp as hell. And I think that's the point of chivalry, is that we have to stand up against evil people in this world from time to time. And the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. I think that's falsely attributed to Edmund Burke, one of the original conservatives, from what I hear. I don't know. I don't read that old shit. I was watching Michael Knowles earlier, and he's always talking in Latin and stuff like that. And it's like, God damn Catholics. Anyway, no offense. I'm not trying to be mean to anybody after my long tirade about how chivalry is great, and then just, bust some Catholic balls. I'm sorry. Anyway, but that's kind of what I wanted to say about chivalry. So as you know, the 21st anniversary of September 11th was a few days ago. And I don't know, I probably talk about this every year, but
turns 21.
Yeah, 9/11 can drink now. So there's a lot of implications regarding that. It's so long ago that there's a generation who doesn't even remember it. And so I probably tell this story every year, but I talk about my 9/11 experience because I went into the Navy on September 15th, 1997. And and that means that my 4 years, it started from that point. So my estimated end of active service, or whatever it's called, EAOS or whatever, was September 15th, 2001. But by the time I got close to that point, I had some leave saved up. And so I was going to take terminal leave, and I had the paperwork on my desk ready to go. Over the past 6 months, over that summer of 2001, I had taken most of my stuff back home over a series of trips back to Fredericksburg from Norfolk. I didn't even have my computer there anymore and stuff like that. So, I was halfway, 1 foot out of the Navy, and I had the paperwork on my desk ready to go on the 10th of September, 2001. That morning, I took my leave paperwork, put it in my pocket, got my dungarees, and went to work. And I think it was a Saturday when that happened. I think it was, let me double check that. But it was, I had to go into work, and our command was doing a transfer. We were transferring from a building we were working at called Whiskey 5, and we were moving back to the ship. Now, Whiskey 5 was an interesting building because you had to, in order to get it, because of all the super secret stuff that goes on there, you have to drink 5 whiskeys before you even walk in the door. That's why they call it Whiskey 5. That's a Whiskey 5 level building. There's Whiskey 7s, Whiskey 3s, and stuff like that. But you got to pound 5 whiskeys when you walk in the door. That way you won't remember anything that you see in there. And if you have any sense of humor at all, you should be laughing right now, okay? Because that's nonsense. It was just a letter and a number named for a building. There's A1 building and there's W5 building. Okay, we were in a building called Whiskey 5, and so we were moving our entire network from Whiskey 5 to the ship, the USS Mount Whitney. So September 11th, 2001, Saturday, day of the week. There we go. It was a Saturday, right? No, it was a Tuesday. Holy cow. Yeah. So so we were moving all this stuff, and there was this guy named Warren, and he was huge. He was jacked, and he had 2 servers over his shoulders, and he's walking down these stairs, and he's like, I'll take these to the ship myself. I'm not even going to put them in the van. He was a big dude. He was a guy who went to the gym for 2 hours a day, every single day, even on days he's on leave, going to the gym for 2 hours a day, and then he'd come into his watch carrying Beowulf, reading it and understanding it better than me. A real Renaissance man. He was an impressive dude. A real squared away sailor. I think I lost Junior Sailor of the Quarter to him that year when he first got there. He was a sharp. I don't mind losing to somebody like that. He was a sharp sailor. And so very useful that he could carry 2 servers, because I could get 1 on me. And so we're doing all this stuff. We're passing, moving all the stuff to the ship, and then the first plane hits the building. And it's all over CNN. We got CNN all over the place in the Navy back then, TVs. And immediately everyone stops. Our first class tell us to stop, hold position, stand fast. Chiefs, lieutenants, all the way up the chain of command. And then the admiral had to go talk to J2, which is intelligence, and intelligence says, this kind of stuff isn't really an accident, so we're going to hold fast right here. And then as soon as the second plane hit and we're all sitting there watching the towers come down, the word gets passed, move everything back to the building. the ship may be deployed very, very soon. But my command was going to stay. So we start moving everything back, and it's like 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. We're getting done moving everything back, and so I have to go to where admin is, and I go to admin, and I have my terminal leave paperwork on September 11th, that evening. And I'm trying to hand it in and start to get it processed so I can leave in the morning. And people, these J1 yeoman bastards, personnelman bastards, they look me in the eye and they're like, our country got attacked today and you're trying to get out of the Navy. It's like, look, I've been trying to get out of the Navy for 4 years. You had plenty of time to have a war. And it's not like I'm going anywhere anyway. If anything, I'm getting out of the Navy and working in a higher paying position in the same DoD industry, which is exactly what happened. But, I get all these headaches trying to get out of the Navy. They think I'm just being basically a little bitch. It was like, oh, you're running from a war, And I found that insulting, like terribly insulting. It's like I said, you had 4 years to have a war, you end up calling the reserves anyway to go, and it's not like my command went anywhere. It's not like my command, like right after I left, the following spring, they went on a North Atlantic. They went to like Ireland and London and like Amsterdam, and it's not like they were off warfighting. If you're touring around Europe, you know what I'm saying, catching STDs, which a lot of people did. Because they drug test everyone once they leave Amsterdam, and if you can't smoke pot in Amsterdam, what else are you doing? Think about it. There's a lot of STDs. And so, then I had to go through this medical screening, and in the medical screening, they found something, and they had to do something about it, and so I had to have a surgery. And so I didn't get out until December of 2001. And, I probably did need the surgery, thinking back on it. And there was a cholesteatoma in my inner ear, could have eaten into my brain. It's basically like acid in your brain that, might eat through the bone and, like, damage your brain. So they're like, we're going to scrape that out. And I was like, oh, appreciate it. Thank you, Navy. Thanks. No charge? Okay, well, maybe there's good things about staying in the Navy. So I don't know if they're just trying to, keep me in or get me to rethink not re-enlisting. But there was also a stop loss. They didn't want to get people leaving the Navy or any armed branches around that time, because they're going to need personnel because the war was coming. And we didn't know exactly what was going to happen. At that time, it's like people were talking about, oh, they're in Afghanistan. They're hiding in the hills in Afghanistan, these Taliban people. And I remember the next day they're stacking sandbags and M60s in front of all the gates at Norfolk Naval Base. And I remember this officer got drawn on at the base because he forgot his ID. He's at the gate and forgot his ID, and some security guy drew his pistol on him, and he was mad as hell. He wanted to talk to the admiral about it. And the admiral probably said, sorry, that guy's just doing his job. You forgot your ID. You need ID. You need ID. Can't serve the military. Can't serve your country without ID. Can't drink without ID. And so, it was kind of a real crazy time, especially being in the military around that era, because there was a severe shift in security tempo. Everything started getting changed for security's sake. And so, I mean, it was really kind of nuts those last couple months I was in the Navy. And so, and then all sorts of other stuff started coming out over the course of the next year or so. And even then, right after 9/11, there was a ton of people I knew that wanted to join the Army right away. And a lot of people did. A lot of people joined the military right away, right after that. And so, and I ran into many of them after their tours and stuff like that. But, we found out, the Taliban ran to, the hills in Afghanistan. And the next thing you know is all right, we're going into Iraq. And you're like, what? Why are we doing this? And then you find out it's there's the guys on the planes were Saudi nationals. And you're like, well, what? And then there's all these questions about, the Pentagon and World Trade Center 7 coming out. And by this time, I'm working in, DOD area, my super secret job, where I had to drink 8 whiskeys to get in the building. And so, all this stuff is coming out, and I'm still a part of the business of warfare. And then I'm really starting to doubt all this stuff, because I was back in George Bush, George Bush 2. I was backing him, backing his play, but he's like, okay, we got to go into Iraq first. And I'm like, okay, I guess, whatever. But then, I started doubting it a whole lot. I started, it's like, I don't know if I want to be in this business anymore, this business of death, of, killing people. And I'm not even sure that what we're doing is right in the right manner. I don't know if these Iraqi people have anything to do with what happened with September 11th. And they really didn't. And looking back on those 21 years, a lot of information has come out since then. And a lot of us are unhappy about it, because you took something that was awful, the September 11th attack, and you misdirected the United States populace. And then you go into Iraq, And I was all about it back then. I was on message boards arguing with people about, it's like, trust me, this is the right thing, going into Iraq and stuff like that. And in retrospect, I was so wrong. And I became very disenchanted with the idea that the military is a virtuous force anymore, and that the business of the Department of Defense was beginning to make me feel guilty of murder. It made me feel like I had blood on my hands. And, it was wearing on my mind in other ways. I was dealing with depression issues and suicidal thoughts. And, for God's sakes, if you have any of those, seek help. All right. Talk to somebody about it. There's plenty of suicide prevention hotlines and stuff like that. Just do some search on the internet. Talk to someone before you do something stupid like I tried to do. That being said, I was dealing with my own mental illness in many ways, because I felt morally compromised by backing these plays because of September 11th. Anyway, I just wanted to relate my September 11th experience real quick. I probably went a little too long on that, but that's all right. I want to talk about one more thing before we get into the news, and if we have to truncate the news, make it shorter, that's no big deal either. So I want to talk about I want to talk about the Queen for a second. And I know what you're thinking. When I heard the news, I was like, I don't care. We fought 2 wars to get rid of all that nonsense. I really don't care who's king now. I don't care that the brothers are arguing. I want to be king. I want to be king. I don't care about any of that. And to dismiss it offhand is the right thing to do. All right. As an American, you shouldn't give a shit about any of that. However, I've heard tons and tons of women talking about the Queen over the past week, varying from all ages, from teenagers to very old women, to even like my beloved Rebecca Felgate on Twitter. She doesn't talk much on Twitter, but she mentioned something when the Queen died, and of course I had to go like it because, hey, thanks for saying something on Twitter. And sometimes she responds to me, and that's cool. But the point is that Queen Elizabeth II had a very positive impact on ladies all throughout her lifetime, going back as far as the Second World War. You understand how long she was queen? But she has influenced many, many women. I've heard like 80-year-old women talking about how she was inspired when she heard about the story about the Saudi prince that Queen Elizabeth drove around. You ever hear that story? Go look that up. The Saudi prince that the Queen Elizabeth drove around. And if you know about people in Islam, they can't stand the idea of a woman driving. All right? And I think that's bold and that's badass. And that's Queen Elizabeth II. And that's what women looked up to her for, because she was always a lady. But she was going to challenge some Saudi prince that says something ridiculous like women are too stupid to drive or something like that. She'll show you. She'll stand up to you that way. It's even like I tried to get the picture of the Queen photobombing, but apparently that's licensed now. Have you ever seen that picture of the 2 teen girls that take a picture and like the Queen photobombs them? That woman is awesome. And she was ladylike. She didn't go on like TV like this Meghan Markle chick, spouting off all the family, flapping out the family's dirty bed sheets and stuff like that. The Queen was never like that. Princess Diana and everyone since have been media attention grabbing idiots. But the Queen acted like a lady from the moment of her birth to the moment of her death. She acted like a lady. She thumbed her nose at misogynist assholes from the Middle East. And she inspired women to be ladylike and be proud of it. So I may say that it doesn't matter. I may say that we really shouldn't care about any of this. But the fact is that the Queen is a hero to real women. All these people get on there and say like, oh, England's a colonizer and like screw England and stuff like that. First of all, those people probably don't even know that, the Queen doesn't really do anything in the government anymore. It's mostly a ceremonial role. It's like Hollywood for England in many ways. And it's weird too, because it's like when a new prince is born and stuff like that, it's like Macaulay Culkin, shoving in front of the cameras. Here's Macaulay Culkin. And you don't ask Macaulay Culkin at 7 years old, what do you want to be when you grow up? Macaulay Culkin's like, I'm already an actor, And it's the same thing with like when you go to like school with the prince, And the prince says, I want to be a cop when I grow up, and everyone laughs at him. It's like, no, you're going to be king, And it's kind of weird that way, in the sense that like a lot of the culture of that monarchy is based upon the royal family. And so it doesn't really matter who's in charge. The government will keep churning along anyway. And so these pink-haired, liberal chicks who are like mad at the Queen, are mad at her because they think she like bowed to the patriarchy by being a lady throughout her life, by not airing her dirty laundry, but not, painting her, her naked body and running through the streets and, streaming it live on Instagram. You know what I'm saying? She had decorum. She had dignity. There's no naked pictures that ever came out of Queen Elizabeth. You know what I'm saying? And if there are, I'm sure they're extremely valuable right now. I'm not trying to be mean to the Queen, but let's be honest. If they existed, they would be extremely expensive. And so, I mean, we gotta show a little bit of respect to the Queen. Screw England and their monarchy, but we got to show a little respect for especially Queen Elizabeth's contribution to culture, in being a real lady in many ways. I mean, you got to understand, it's like, this is the Queen. This is the only Queen that the only Queen I cared about knew. And that's Freddie Mercury. Freddie Mercury, the only Queen he knew was Queen Elizabeth II. You know what? It's the same Queen that the Sex Pistols mocked. Just think about all that. How important culturally she really was to Western society. That's all I want to say about that. So let's go ahead and get to the news worth knowing. What is happening to justice is my comment on this one. All right, judge orders Iowa teen trafficking victim to pay $150,000 in restitution to the family of rapist she killed. An Iowa teenage sex trafficking victim who stabbed her rapist to death was sentenced by a judge on Tuesday to 5 years of closely supervised probation and must pay $150,000 restitution to her abuser's family. Piper Lewis, 17, stabbed her abuser, 37-year-old Zachary Brooks, more than 30 times in June of 2020. She was initially charged with first-degree murder. Jeez Louise. Last year, Lewis pleaded to involuntary manslaughter and willful injury, both of which are punishable by up to 10 years in prison. However, Polk County District Judge David Porter deferred those prison sentences on Tuesday, meaning Lewis could serve 20 years if she violates her probation. Porter said he ordered Lewis to pay restitution to Brooks' family because the court was presented with no other option. He explained that the restitution is mandatory under Iowa law. What? Lewis, who was 15 when she stabbed Brooks in a Des Moines apartment, had run away from home to escape her abusive adoptive mother. She was sleeping in the halls of an apartment building when Christopher Brown, 28, took her in and began trafficking her to other men for sex. According to among those men was Brooks, who Lewis said raped her multiple times before she killed him. She recalled being forced at knife point to go to his apartment for sex. After Brooks raped her for what it would end up being his last time, Lewis grabbed the knife off a bedside table and stabbed him. I'm not going to read any more of the article. It's brutal, as EK just said. It's brutal. It's awful. But if you ask me, that's self-defense. That's self-defense. And I don't know if you know anything about stabbing people, but once won't put them down. Whenever you see like a television show, it's like, oh, they stabbed him 56 times. People keep coming. That's why knives are so messy. People can keep fighting. I don't know if you've seen anyone get stabbed, but especially when their blood's up, when their adrenaline's pumping, they may not notice. And when somebody is doing something that awful to you, you know, I'm not saying that if you catch a rapist, we should use the capital punishment on them. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that if you feel like you after you've been raped and you feel like it's going to keep happening, and you think the only way to escape that situation is to grab the knife off the table and stab him 30 times, I consider that to be self-defense. You know, I consider rape to be a threat on your life, because it is. And so when I don't care about like the laws, is like, you know, justice needs to happen. I don't understand why she got charged with first-degree murder, and then it got pled down to involuntary manslaughter. I think self-defense should cover the bases here. No harm, no foul. Rapist dead, victim free. But I think there's a similar article I was considering for today as well, where they're talking about like what's his name, Sliwa from the Guardian Angels, talking about in New York about how you know, New Yorkers need to have the right to stand their ground. Because, you know, at this point, like if you get attacked in New York streets or anywhere really, if you get attacked and you defend yourself, there's a real chance you could go to prison just for defending yourself. You know, and I'm sorry, violence works in an awful way. You know, violence is an awful thing. And when violence starts happening, you know, you need to end it. You need to end it quickly. All right? Sometimes that means at a barrel of a gun. Sometimes that means a knife. You know? It just irritates me that, you know, we're having all this sympathy for perpetrators of crimes. Making his family $150K richer? A rapist's family richer? Get out of here, Iowa. I don't know what you're thinking. All right, let's go over to New York and talk about the homeless. All right, so New York City sidewalks are showcasing A Little Shop of Horrors. That's not fair. Don't bring that awesome play into this. That's a great musical. Alarm goes off at 7. Anyway, sorry about that. The humanitarian crisis of homelessness festers in broad daylight today, just steps from the tourist-packed heart of Manhattan. One man slept on a sidewalk in the rain with trash, food, and filth littered around him on West 43rd Street this past Sunday morning, exactly 2 blocks from where the New York City drops its iconic New Year's Eve ball in Times Square. Guess where I won't be going this New Year's Eve? A toaster sat next to the man, which he apparently used to heat his food on the sidewalk by plugging it into a light pole. New York City utility poles have an accessible box at the bottom which contains ordinary household electrical sockets. I guess that makes sense. I suppose so, yeah. Anyway, the man slept. They'd probably die in the winter if those things didn't exist. Anyway, electric blankets and such. Anyway, the man slept in front of the West Side Theater, the home since 2019 of the off-Broadway hit and tourist attraction Little Shop of Horrors. So that's why he said that. Just keeps getting worse. Sal Sinatra Salomon, of the New York City singer, actor, and advocate for the homeless, told Fox News Digital this week. Just keeps getting worse. This is the greatest city in the world, and this is unacceptable. The theater of the absurd proliferates even as cities' democratic leaders dump billions of taxpayer dollars into failed programs and shelters that are run by private contractors. Salomon says he spent years living on the streets and is also time behind bars in state custody. The city shelters, in his opinion, are worse than prison. Yes, I've heard that as well. That's one reason why so many people preferred the hard life on the streets. Prison workers have supervisors and are trained to respect privacy of the men in prison. Yeah. Shelters are run by some loudmouth from the neighborhood who knows the mayor and hires their friends with city money. Zing! Conditions at shelters are deplorable, agrees State Senator Brad Hoylman, a Democrat who represents Midtown Manhattan. They're unsafe and inadequate, he added. And when you make that decision to lie down and sleep on the sidewalk, that means you've given up. It means you're not getting the help you need, said Solomon. People get tired, man. Containers of food littered the street in the gutter next to a man with a toaster oven, along with a shopping cart full of empty cans and bottles. Homelessness in the neighborhood is an ongoing problem. We're highly concerned about the welfare of these individuals. Westside Theater General Manager Terry Byrne told Fox News Digital in an interview. New York City's homelessness population has surged in recent years to 80,000 people, according to the Bowery Mission, a 150-year agency serving the hungry and the homeless, citing federal data. Homelessness in New York City has reached the highest level since the Great Depression of the 1930s, Coalition for the Homeless reports. New York City Department of Social Services and Homeless Services website says that 55,338 people, including more than 18,000 children, slept in city shelters on September 11, 2022. The same day the man with the toaster event slept outside Westside Theater. Yeah, so this is not uncommon in many cities, especially liberal cities. Like the homelessness obviously has been a big problem in like L.A. and San Francisco for a while. But I mean, this is, it's popping up more and more, in all cities, really. And so it's and they're right at talking about these shelters, the difference between shelters and prison, and the difference is security. And as a person who grew up Christian, and I went and worked with homeless shelters and stuff like that, all these people told me it's like security is an issue. And there's people getting assaulted, there's people getting raped, there's people getting robbed in the shelter because there's not good enough security. And that's why prison is better for some of these homeless people to get clean, get on their feet, get a little bit more educated, and go out there and give it another shot. And so like these shelters, though, it's like he said, it's just some rich boys club. He's like, oh, I don't care, just throw money at this problem. Go buy some food or something. I'm going to go take a picture with the mayor. I'm going to go play golf with the mayor. I'm going to give my friends some cushy government jobs. And so it's he's very right when he says that. And so it's I think that the shelters need more security. I've always thought that, even from when I was a teenager. If they want to be effective, I think that we need to build more mental institutions. When I was institutionalized, I was shocked at how many non-homeless people there were in there, and how many whiny, college-educated white people were in there. And I think that, I think you need these mental health areas as a kind of, in many ways, a kind of like minimum security prison in many ways, to provide security for them so that they can sleep safely, they can, wash safely, they could, have their property not be stolen, not be assaulted and stuff like that for a couple of weeks or something like that. They get their head right and go out there and make another shot at life. That's better than prison, than committing a crime just to get 3 hots in a cot. Anyway, something needs to be done about it. I know I'm all conservative and stuff like that, but I'm a nice guy. I care. Let's talk about Joe Biden for a little bit. So Biden to announce $900 million electric vehicle infrastructure overhaul. And he did this at Detroit's auto show. So President Joe Biden will attend an auto show in Detroit, Michigan, on Wednesday, where he will tour the newest models and auto manufacturers' electric vehicle portfolios and announce a new infrastructure plan to make driving electric vehicles more accessible. Biden, a vintage car enthusiast and owner of a 1967 C2 Corvette Stingray. Oh, the universe is not in alignment. It's not right. He has that and I don't. It's just not right. Anyway, he will meet with dozens of automakers in the North American International Auto Show to boast about the Inflation Reduction Act, recently signed climate and healthcare law that offers tax incentives for buying electric vehicles. All right. I don't want to read any more of this article. I'm mad. Where are you getting all this money, Joe? Boom, I got your wallet. Boom, I got your credit card. Boom, I got your Phillies tickets. Boom, I got your taxpayer dollars. I got your grandchildren's taxpayer dollars. On this boondoggle. It's not ready. Electric vehicles are not ready. You got to charge them every 100 miles? Anyway. Those idiots. Now, let's talk about these Navy SEALs. I remember I've been following this story since, COVID and everything like that. But the Navy quietly rolled back punishments for SEALs seeking religious exemptions to the COVID vaccine. Because it doesn't matter anymore. And the U.S. Navy quietly rolled back an order punishing SEALs who remain unvaccinated due to their religious beliefs, according to recent court documents. The order, Trident Order number 12, that's awful. You sully the Trident with this? Anyway, disqualified SEALs for seeking religious exemptions from the COVID-19 vaccine from training, traveling for deployment, and conducting other standard business. First issued on September 24th of 2021 by Vice Chief of Naval Operations Admiral William Lesher. And all special warfare forces were initially expected to come into compliance with the vaccine mandate by mid-October 2021. The order specifically said that special operations designated personnel, SEAL and SWCC, refusing to receive recommended vaccines based solely on personal or religious beliefs would still be medically disqualified, meaning SEALs were designated as non-deployable if they submitted religious accommodation requests. I think SWCC is SWCC. I think so. Anyway, the order was put on hold due to preliminary injunction issued by the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals in early 2022 as part of an ongoing lawsuit by First Liberty Institute and Hacker Stevens LLP on behalf of 35 active duty SEALs and 3 reservists seeking a religious exemption to the mandate. However, according to a new filing in the lawsuit, Navy quietly rolled back Trident Order number 12 on May 22nd, 2022, a few months after the injunction was issued. Communication order was circulated by the Navy on May 23 with the subject, NSWC closeout to Trident Order number 12, mandatory vaccination for COVID-19. NSWC refers to Naval Special Warfare Command. I'm trying to remember where that is. Navy Special Warfare Command. I want to say MacDill. I want to say Tampa. It's in Tampa. The comments sort me out. Anyway, so these guys aren't going to have to do it. This is great. Good for them. They outweighted it, Anyway, I want to get into these 2 happier stories before we get out of here. Getting hot. I got to get these lights off in here. All right, so strap in for this one. Woman walks into North Dakota bar with raccoon. Health officials warn of rabies exposure. You don't say. So a woman walked into a North Dakota bar carrying a raccoon, leading health officials to warn those who had contact with the animal about possible rabies exposure. Bartender Cindy Smith said she was serving drinks at the Maddox Bar last week when a local resident brought the animal in during happy hour. There were about 10 people in the saloon at the time, she said. Smith said she immediately asked the woman to leave, but instead she took the raccoon around the bar to show another customer. Eventually, the woman departed with the animal after about 5 minutes. We finally got her out with it. That's all that happened, Smith told the Bismarck Tribune. It never left her arms one time. There's absolutely no biting. Maddox is a town of about 500 people located about 85 miles from the Canadian border. Rabies is a viral infection that affects mammals, including humans. In an alert issued Tuesday, North Dakota's Health and Human Services Department is asking anyone who may have been bitten or had contact with the raccoon's saliva should seek medical care. Quote, because rabies is such a serious disease with nearly 100% fatality rate, we are making this information available to the public as a precautionary measure, epidemiologist Amanda Bakken said in a statement. 6 rabid animals have been reported in North Dakota this year, including 2 bats, 2 cats, 1 bovine, and 1 skunk. But no raccoons. Said Smith, I had no idea what she was thinking. When I read this story earlier today, the first thing that popped in my head was when was in Rick and Morty, when it was the Christmas episode where Rick makes Jerry lighter than air, but makes his shoes heavier than air. So he's neutrally buoyant, and so he's bouncing around and stuff like that. But he ends up like floating or dropping his shoes. Unless Jerry could screw up wearing shoes. It's like, oh my God, he's going to die. So he lost his shoe, and ends up floating away. Somehow he gets a hold of this rock, and which is holding him to the earth. And so he wanders into this bar, right, holding this rock. And as soon as he walks in the bar, everyone's like, what's the deal with the rock? Hey, drop the rock, buddy. He's like, no, I kind of need the rock. And, I really need it. It's like, drop the rock. And he's like, I need it. And frankly, your bar has a lot of ceiling fans. Drop the rock, buddy. You think you're a tough guy? And finally, Jerry drops the rock. He starts floating in the bar. And there's like, knock that off. They start poking him with pool cues. Knock that off. And they eventually like push him outside. And he floats off again, the poor bastard. Take your girlfriend with you. And they throw the rock outside. And I'm thinking that's pretty much a genuine reaction from any general crowd of a country bar. Drop the rock, buddy. They don't know what's going on. It's like we come in a bar holding a big rock. That's threatening as hell. And so it's a very natural reaction. And so when you're in North Dakota, this small town of 500 people, some lady walks in with a raccoon. There's a guarantee as soon as she walks in, she's like, get that critter out of here before I shoot it. And of course it's a woman that walks in with it. I'm not trying to be sexist or nothing here, but sometimes women get some wild hair up their asses. These ridiculously dangerous creatures would be great pets, like a raccoon or a squirrel. I had a girl when I was dating a girl once that said, I would like to catch a squirrel and keep a squirrel as a pet. It's like, are you kidding me? A rat? Get a hamster. Oh, for God's sakes. And I think I was watching one where I think it was I want to say donut operator. He put up a video saying like of his wife looking to catch a possum, or they found a possum in their garage or something like that, and they chased it away. And she said she wanted to catch the possum and keep it as a pet. And it's like, Donut, you got to set your wife straight about these things. A possum isn't a pet. First of all, it's a mammal, and if you know anything about mammals, they're incredibly horny, and they pee and poo everywhere, and it stinks. Neuter your male cats, for God's sakes. Do you know why? Because they'll pee on everything. All right, mammals are the worst. And when you're talking about possums, I know it's a marsupial. All right, but they're very, 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 very close. But the point is that they have forked penises, yo. That'll haunt your dreams if you see an opossum's dick. It's one thing when your dog gets a red rocket, but when you see a possum looking at you and he's ready to go, that's terrifying. You will have nightmares, fire in the sky type of nightmares. You understand? Drop the rock. Some tough guy on the rock. All right, let's do this last story. Ohio grandson takes his 92-year-old grandmother to visit every single national park. Isn't that nuts? One grand Ohio duo is wrapping up an all-American journey of a lifetime. Brad Ryan and his 92-year-old grandmother, Joy Ryan, have officially visited 62 of 63 U.S. national parks, with one more left to go. Brad Ryan and Joy Ryan joined Fox and Friends on Friday to share the details of their adventure beginning back in 2015, when Brad called his grandmother and asked if she'd accompany him. I'm glad he called, Joy Ryan said. I wasn't doing anything at the time, just sitting there and resting. Why the hell not? So he wanted to go and I was willing, she said. Ryans have driven more than 50,000 miles to explore every corner of this beautiful country, Brad Ryan said. The grandson's initial prompt to get up and go and get out into the wild was for the benefit of his own mental health, he said. But he revealed that bringing his grandmother along with him on the trip has been transformational for the relationship. A lot of people her age, she feel like a lot of people her age, she felt left behind, he said. I was in my 4th year of veterinary school at the Ohio State University, and I just wanted to break away from the stress of all that and remember what life was all about. Yeah, vet school getting to you. I get it, man. The then 85-year-old Joy Ryan experienced camping and climbing a mountain for the very first time, which has fueled the duo's interest in continued travel. She was 91 last year, and she went whitewater rafting in Alaska. That's awesome. Quote, our message is no matter how old you are, life is still happening, and you can make that adventure happen for somebody in your life. Brad Ryan admitted to spending time with his grandmother has put current day pressures into perspective. He describes the oldest generation as resilient. It's been a positive experience for me in every possible way, he said. Brad and Joy Ryan will be making their very last stop in the National Park of American Samoa. Oh my God. That's a long way. Yeah, you'd really have to prioritize that list. 50,000 miles. Wow. That's a real adventure. I'm telling you. Wow. Vet school is really getting to you, buddy. But hey, just imagine that. It's like, you wouldn't want to ask your grandma to go because, it's like, if she falls and breaks a hip, what a nightmare, So I wonder, like, how many friends turned him down. And I think that's even sadder, is that people are like, I don't want to go outside. Have you played World of Warcraft? It's so, I mean, it's good that he did it with his family. I hope she was his first choice. But I mean, let's be honest, it's like a very old lady. But I mean, if she's well enough to go whitewater raft, who am I to judge, So I still wouldn't do that because I don't want to die in a bubbling river. So I mean, it's it's up to you, I suppose. But here's what I'm pretty sure. I think she wants to be kidnapped by aliens or something like that. You've heard of that missing 411 stuff, where like people go missing from national parks all the time, and so maybe she and her grandson, they always have these conversations about alien abductions and stuff like that. And she's like, well, I'm old. I've done everything here on Earth. So let's go see if we can talk some aliens into kidnapping me, showing me what they know. And if I were 92 and I wanted to do something like that, I hope you would take me. So this is going to be the end of this show. I want to remind you again that I have a Patreon. Go to patreon.com/shockmonkeyradio. Become a patron. I would appreciate that. And if you'd rather send me money on Cash App, use the hashtag shockmonkeyradio, all one word. I'd appreciate that. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at DNALETSAW. That's the word wasteland spelled backwards. Shock Monkey Radio Redux on Facebook, and at SLRobbins13 on Instagram. I also have books available for digital download. Search for the author Scott L. Robbins with 2 T's and 2 B's. Or you can follow the links to the books down in the description below. So thank you. This is the end of the show. I'm the Madman, and I love you.